Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Israel is continuing its retaliatory attacks on the Gaza Strip. At least 6,500 Palestinians, including more than 2,700 children, have been killed and more than 17,500 wounded in the latest installment of the conflict unleashed by Hamas terrorists. More civilians have already been killed in clashes that have been going on for several days and in Israel's previous 4 wars with Palestine, the Associated Press reported on October the 20th. The current conflict began with the attack by Palestinian Hamas, which broke into Israeli territory on the 7th of October, murdering residents of border towns, kidnapping them and taking them to the Gaza Strip. Some 1,400 people were killed at the time and no fewer than 222 were abducted, including children, women and the elderly. Pope Francis renewed his calls for the release of hostages, but also for humanitarian aid to be allowed into Gaza. The Holy Father also reiterated that he will lead a special prayer for peace in St. Peter's Basilica on Friday, which he said last week would be a day of fasting, prayers and penance.
Alla grave situazione in Palestina, in Israele.
I am constantly thinking about the serious situation in Palestine and Israel. I encourage the release of hostages and allowing humanitarian aid to Gaza. I continue to pray for those who are suffering and hope to achieve peace in the Middle East, in tormented Ukraine and in other war-torn regions. Gaza needs billions of dollars in international economic aid, according to a report released today by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. However, according to many experts, this raises the danger that the money will go to weapons for Hamas instead of going to reconstruction.
What is being destroyed is the stock of capital. I mean, it's buildings, it's hospitals. I mean, so trying to make an assessment of that once the fighting has stopped will itself be incredibly difficult. As Mutassim just said, we've seen a quartering, essentially, of aid to the Palestinian economy, not just Gaza, over the last 15, 16 years. So I really don't. It's a very difficult to make a proper assessment until things stop. But it's going to be in the billions of dollars. But that there's no doubt. It's going to be in the tens of billions of dollars. The vicious circle of destruction and partial reconstruction must be broken by negotiations of a peaceful solution based on international law and relevant Security Council and United Nations resolutions to end hostilities, and by redoubling donor support for the recovery of the war-torn economy. While donor aid is important for extending a lifeline to the beleaguered people of Gaza, it should not be viewed as a substitute for ending the blockade and calling on Israel to fulfill its obligations under international law.
Its report on the economic development of the occupied Palestinian territories highlighted the dire economic conditions in Gaza, even before the current installment of the conflict. The report found that nearly half of Gaza's population is unemployed and more than half live in extreme poverty. President Andrzej Duda has completed consultations with representatives of party election committees. Yesterday, he spoke to the Law and Justice and Civic Coalition parties. Today, with the Third Way, the Left and the Confederation parties. The opposition is pressing the president not to wait until the end of the current term of the Sejm, but to give the future Prime Minister the mission of forming a new government as soon as possible.
We conveyed our position on the parliamentary majority and also on the joint prime minister candidate, which was already discussed yesterday by the Civic Platform. Today, this is confirmed by the Third Way. We are able to elect a parliamentary majority, the presidencies of the Sejm and the Senate, and appoint a prime minister. And we have assured the president that this is our stable position, and we are determined to do so as soon as possible. The president has not yet made a decision on naming a candidate for prime minister. This is also very important because there is still that chance for this process of taking over power to take place smoothly and without unnecessary delays. More than 7,600,000 people voted for Law and Justice. I wanted first of all to thank you very much for this. We are the first party in the history of the Third Republic of Poland to win elections for the third time in a row, and this also testifies at the same time to the enormous trust. I really thank you very much once again. At the same time, this victory, in order to be completed, must end with some kind of coalition, one coalition or another, because many coalitions are possible. We are ready to cooperate with anyone who has the best interests of Poland at heart. What was most important to the president, of course, was not only this post-election jigsaw, parliamentary arithmetic, but also the discussion of fundamental issues, such as the subject of security, the future of the Polish army, or the socio-economic situation. So that's what these discussions were about. And based on subsequent actions, the president will make a decision regarding the appointment of the prime minister, bearing in mind, of course, the provisions of the Constitution first and foremost.
A thick layer of smog shrouds the Indian capital. Visibility is abysmal, with Delhi residents complaining of breathing difficulties and itchy eyes. Authorities in the 20-year-old megalopolis are trying to combat the smog by launching additional public transport to encourage people to give up travelling by car.
Earlier, the pollution was a little less, but yesterday after the festival, it increased significantly. The fog became very thick in the morning. When cycling, the eyes are itchy, so there are some difficulties. When I came here, I saw that there was terrible pollution, so I had to wear a mask. I always have it handy. The coronavirus is gone, but the pollution is still there. So I think we should all wear masks. It should become our habit. A day after images of the Hindu demon king Ravana were burned across the country as part of the festival of Dussehra, pollution levels in the Indian capital worsened significantly. Specifically, it is the concentration of fine particles that can settle in the lungs and cause serious ailments known as PM2.5, fine particulate matter, with a diameter of 2.5 micrometers or less. Levels above 60 are considered harmful, and in Delhi it was 100. People have started wearing masks to avoid breathing problems due to the pollution. People complain of eye pain and breathing problems. Every winter, thick smog usually hovers over India's capital when the cold, heavy air traps construction dust, vehicle emissions, and smoke from stubble burning in neighbouring states, causing a surge in respiratory illnesses among the city's more than 20 million residents.
Cyclone Hamoon struck southeastern Bangladesh, bringing with it strong winds and rains that destroyed hundreds of homes. Several people were killed and dozens are believed to be missing.
Last night, strong winds took my house made of corrugated metal. We took shelter in another house. Everything is soaked with rainwater. What to do now? I don't know. We don't have any help. The cyclone put us in serious difficulty. People, especially children, couldn't sleep. We have been starving since last evening. Some women are unable to clean up the mess on their own because their husbands live abroad. Thousands of trees have been uprooted and houses built of corrugated metal have been completely destroyed. Hundreds of tarpaulin-covered bamboo huts in the Rohingya refugee camps were also damaged, according to local officials. Bangladeshi authorities reported that most people were evacuated to shelters before the storm made landfall, but many families who were unable to reach shelters were sleeping in the open. There is no electricity or internet access, and road connections to many cities have been blocked. Cyclones are a very common occurrence in the Bay of Bengal, especially during the pre- and post-monsoon periods.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.